Boker Tov, one of the main mitzvot of the evening is, of course, the mitzvah of Haggadah, V'Higaddata Mincha B'Yom. And it's important to recognize a few points with regards to this. Firstly, is that this mitzvah is incumbent upon women as much as it is upon men. Despite the fact that this is a mitzvah to say Shezman Gerama, it's a time-bound mitzvah, nonetheless, the mitzvah is compared to matzah and Korban Pesach in those days, and since women are obligated in those mitzvot, they are equally obligated in the mitzvah of Haggadah, Siporitzat Mitzrayim. Despite the fact there were some who understood there was only a rabbinic obligation, the consensus of the poskim is that this is a biblical obligation equal to men, and therefore women need to partake in this mitzvah just as much as men do. Similarly, when the mitzvah of retelling the story over to one's children, which is the main mitzvah, although one can still retell the story to anyone, even to themselves, although the main mitzvah is to one's child, and although the Torah says lebincha, lebincha means the son and daughter, lebincha is the child, and the Torah is using the masculine as the collective form of children. However, having said that, second point to recognize is that we see clear in the Gemara, and this was clearly what used to happen, and one fulfills the mitzvah through this, is that one person would read the Haggadah on behalf of everyone. There is no obligation to read every word of the Haggadah, every person around the table. Remember, the Haggadah isn't a text of a prayer which every person needs to say. It's a springboard for discussion. And so what used to happen, and we see this in the Gemara, is that one person would say the Haggadah and everyone would listen and he would explain it to them. And through that, each person would fulfill the mitzvah of V'Higaddata Lebincha. And so, although women are equally obligated in this mitzvah, they fulfill it completely by listening to the person leading the Seder and understanding it. It's not enough just to listen to the Hebrew text being read. Unfortunately, sometimes people read the text as if they're just praying it and don't understand it. Of course, it needs to be explained and understood and discussed. But women listening and understanding and partaking in that, although they don't read every word, that equally fulfills the mitzvah of reading the Haggadah, of telling over the story by listening to it. And each person around the table fulfills that mitzvah. If you have an adult teenager, they fulfill the mitzvah by listening to their father. They don't necessarily have to read every part of it. So that's the second point to recognize. Third point to understand is what are the key points which women and everyone around the table need to listen to and to really understand. So the main parts are Manishtana Vadim Hayinu, which is the question and answer. And then there is also the element of to start to talk about the history, to talk about the past. And that we fulfill with the paragraph of Mitahila Hayu Avotenu Avudei Avodah Zarah, and a couple of paragraphs after that until Arami Oved Avi Vayered Mitzrayma. Those are the key parts of the Haggadah, and towards the end, the three things, Pesach, Matzah, and Maror, and explaining what they are. That is from the Mishnah and the Gemara. Those are the key parts which need to be said on Pesach evening. The rest of the Haggadah of Magid is different texts which were put together in the times of the Geonim. So we're looking at about 1500 to 1000 years ago. The actual structure of the Haggadah was composed and finalized. But the core elements are mentioned in the Mishnah and the Gemara. And those core elements is, as we've said, the question and answer, Manishna Vadim Hayinu, talking about the past, the historical past, and the Pesach Matzah Maror, and explaining their reasons. And of course, at the end of Magid, the Hallel, which every person needs to say that. Although we've said that the rest of Haggadah people can listen, but when it comes to saying the Hallel, that's now a kind of bracha, that's a kind of tefillah, and either everyone should pay attention and listen, or better still, each person says it, or together everyone says it. But those are the key parts of the Haggadah, and therefore one should make an effort, the person leading the Seder, to explain very clearly those parts, whichever language it may be. But it's if Hebrew is not the spoken language at home, then it's essential and crucial to fulfilling the mitzvah of Siporit Mitzrayim to translate them, to explain them. Avadim Hayinu, that's the answer to the question, why is this night different? Going back to the past, Mitahila, and then ending off with how things got better, and explaining Pesach, Matzah, Maror, what each one is. And even though these are simple things and we know them nonetheless, to talk them over, to explain them is all crucial and essential part of the mitzvah. And we should recognize that the Haggadah is something which is not static. It's not stagnant that you just read the text and that's it. It's actually a springboard for discussion. And any part where a person feels they want to understand, they want to analyze, they want to discuss, they want to add on, That's kol ha'marbeh harazeh meshubach. That's about what's it said, that the more which we say, the more praiseworthy it is. And therefore, to summarize, women are equally obligated in the mitzvah, but they fulfill the mitzvah, and so does everyone around the table, by one person reading and explaining the Haggadah, and everyone listening and understanding what's being said. We've talked about the key parts of it, and finally, how the Haggadah can be used as a springboard for further discussion.